Okay, hi everyone. I'm going to go ahead and kick us off. My name is Alexia Kemmerling. I am the Community Engagement Coordinator at Disability Rights Ohio. And today is our first budget debrief. We will be having these every week, and we'll keep you updated on that. I'm going to start with a quick visual description of myself, and then I am going to go into an overview of some accessibility features, some housekeeping information, and then we will go ahead and get our presentation started. So, a visual description of myself. I am a white woman in my early 20s. I have shoulder-length blonde hair, and I'm wearing an orange sweater. Okay, so in terms of our accessibility features today, we have interpreters Jessica and Krista. And we also have Denise, who is our captionist today. I have spotlighted the interpreters for everyone. There will be a time during the presentation when there is a PowerPoint, but you should still be able to see them. In the right-hand corner of your screen, you should see a button that says View. You can click on that and choose different options for what works the best for you. In order to see the captions, you can click on your toolbar on the bottom where it says More, click Captions, and then Show Captions. You can also follow along on a text in a link in a browser, which I will put in the chat. If you have any issues accessing the interpreters or the captions, please send a note to me or to our panelists, and we will get that fixed for you. We have a lot of information to cover today, so we're going to try to save the majority of questions till the end. But if you have a question throughout, you can submit that in the chat or in the Q&A feature. Or if typing doesn't work for you, you can use the raise hand feature, and then I will give you the permission to unmute. If your question is really urgent about clarity on something, we might interrupt our panelists to answer it right away. But to make sure we get through all of the information, we're going to try and save most of the questions for the end. If you would like a copy of this recording, please send me an email and I will put my email in the chat and I will share that with you. All right, so I think that is all of our housekeeping information. So just a brief introduction of what we're going to be talking about today. As many of you probably know, earlier this week, Governor DeWine gave his State of the State address, and then he released his Blue Book, which is the first overview of the proposed budget. So this kind of tells us where the money is going and how it might be spent. So our policy director from Disability Rights Ohio is going to walk us through how to go about reading that document, as well as some of the takeaways that we found from it. And then our consultant, Alicia Hopkins, is going to just talk a little bit about some advocacy efforts you can get involved in. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Jordan Ballinger, who will do a visual description and then jump into the presentation.
Thank you, Alexia. And thank you for giving an overview of the presentation so I don't have to. My name is Jordan. I'm the Policy Director at Disability Rights Ohio. Visual description, I am in my last year of my 20s, unfortunately. I'm a white male. I have dark blonde hair. I have a blue button-up shirt my background is blurred. So I'm going to share my screen. I have quite a few slides. Like Alexia said, the first half of this presentation is just about how to review the budget for those of you who have never seen a budget before. The second half would be the key takeaways from Governor DeWine's budget. So an overview of the budget process generally, as Alexia had mentioned earlier, the governor submits a budget every odd numbered year to the General Assembly as required by the Constitution. It's required to be submitted 4 weeks after the convening of the GA, which is why he announced and released it on Tuesday, the 31st. The budget provides funding for basically everything in the state, from our service systems to transportation, roads, schools, local governments, etc. And it is required to be balanced. These next few slides give you kind of an overview of where the money comes from and where it goes. All of this is taken from the Ohio checkbook, which I'll show you in a little bit, which is a really cool tool for those of you who want to get more involved in budget advocacy. So there are two main forms of revenue for the state. That's non-tax and tax revenue. The non-tax revenues include things like federal dollars that come in from the federal government. Tax revenues are things like our state income tax. This is the general overarching spending of our state government. As you can see, the largest portion of spending for our budget goes towards Medicaid, and a lot of that is made up by federal funding. And then followed by government, and then primary and secondary education. And you can see over here the list of things that it goes to. There's quite a bit. Health and Human Services is one of the larger ones too, with about $8 billion being allocated. Medicaid is around $40 billion. Primary, secondary education is about $16 billion. So a pretty large amount of money that goes into these service systems. I also took a breakaway of how much is spent by state agency so that you can see which agencies get the largest share of funding from the state. Obviously, the largest again is the Department of Medicaid, which takes up about 38% of spending, followed by education at 19%. Other ones of note, the Department of Developmental Disabilities is 4%. And transportation 5%. So these agencies are kind of where we're going to tackle today, and they take up a huge share of our state budget. So Disability Rights Ohio has a document that gives you an overview of the budget process, which there is a link on here, and we'll also send out after this with the recording these slides and some few links of note to some of the helpful pages I'm going to be discussing later on, including this document, which gives you an overview of the budget process, which I'm about to walk through. So like I said, January 31st, the governor releases the budget. Here in the next few weeks, LSC will be releasing the introduced legislation along with the Redbook, which I will talk about. The House then breaks the bill down into subcommittees to review the budget. Each subcommittee reports back to the full Finance Committee, and the full Finance Committee accepts a sub-bill. Additional hearings occur on the substitute version of the bill, and then an omnibus bill is then adopted by committee, and it is passed out of committee and onto the House floor, where then the House puts out their version of the budget bill. From there, the budget bill goes to the Senate. This is around April to June. So the Senate Finance, the past few budgets will split the budget into various standing committees. So for instance, this General Assembly, there is a committee on Medicaid, there's a committee on health. So they may split up individual budgets to those particular standing committees. Each of these committees will have their own hearings, and similarly to the House, the Senate Finance Committee will adopt a substitute bill. They'll have several more opportunities for testimony. Then they'll have an omnibus bill, and they will pass that out of the committee and then the Senate will pass their version of the budget. Then both chambers will come together because most likely the Senate version and House version of the budget are going to look very different. So they're going to come together in what's known as a conference committee, and they are going to hash out the differences between the chambers and come up with a final bill that will be voted on again by both chambers and sent to the governor. At this point, the governor will have the opportunity to veto measures of the bill. And then the bill must be signed by midnight at June 30th, unless there are extensions made, which have happened before. The General Assembly then has until the end of their General Assembly session to overturn any of the governor's vetoes. So here are some of the key terms I'll be using today, and I'll be showing you more examples of these. Like I mentioned already, the Ohio checkbook, a huge companion piece to all of this is the Legislative Service Commission, their Budget Central page. The Blue Book, which is the governor's proposed budget. The Red Book, which is the detailed version of the introduced budget. The Green Book, which is the final detailed budget. And then comparison docs or comp docs are documents that detail changes between each version of the budget. So it'll detail changes from the version that is introduced to the version that is in the House substitute bill, to the version that is in the Senate bill, etc. So first here is a graphic of the Ohio book, and this just kind of shows you what exactly that page looks like. The Ohio checkbook allows you to go in there and flesh out details, kind of what I showed earlier about where spending is going, where money is coming from, those kinds of things, which I'll show you in a second. This is actually an old graphic. The Legislative Service Commission just recently updated their webpage. So I'll show you when I do a demonstration. But on LSC, which is the acronym for the Legislative Service Commission, you'll be able to go through each version of the budget as it moves through, and you can look at previous budgets on here. So I'll be walking you through last General Assembly's budget, which was House Bill 110. And this is where you will get almost all of your information about what is and isn't in the budget. So luckily, we are able to talk a little bit about Governor DeWine's Blue Book. So on here is a screenshot of the cover page, and then what the each agency's kind of memo or overarching proposal looks like. So when you're going, you have a better understanding of what it is you're going to look for, which I'll walk through more also. In the Blue Book, you'll find agency goals and objectives. On the left-hand side is an image of what those goals and objectives look like. So it's just highlighting what the agency is prioritizing. On the right side is an image of the appropriation line items, which I'll get more into as well. But these appropriation line items will show you where each funding source is going and how much it is either increased or decreased over the biennium. And the biennium is the 2-year budget cycle. Here's a graphic of the Red Book. The reason it's called the Red Book is because it's red. So on the left-hand side is what kind of your first page looks like with a table of contents. On the right, you'll see departments highlight their major initiatives. The difference between the Red Book and the Blue Book, the Red Book is going to have more finite detail on all of the provisions that the agency is working on, either mostly what they're investing additional dollars into and prioritizing in the state budget. Here is a breakdown of kind of what exactly those individual agency goals and objectives are going to look like, where they're really highlighting what it is the agency is focused on in their budget. For several agencies, especially the ones we are interested in, they will also give you further breakdowns in terms of, like, for instance, the Department of Developmental Disabilities will break down the number of waiver programs. Here it'll show you what particular kinds of initiatives are getting how much money from each individual funding stream. page, I have the appropriations spreadsheet, which looks like a lot. However, what makes it easy to go through and understand are the companion Redbooks. In these books, they will actually take all of these line items and highlight where this funding is going to. The reason these appropriation spreadsheets are important is because you can reference them back to the more detailed parts of the Redbook and see what the percentage changes over the biennium and how much of an increase is going into each of these. So for instance, this appropriation spreadsheet here is the Developmental Disabilities appropriation spreadsheet. And as you can see, there's kind of two different tiers on this particular page. The top one is GRF, or Revenue Fund. So that would be the state's dollars that they are putting into these particular line items. Below are dedicated purpose funds. And then there would also be like a federal funding line items as well. And each of those are just different funding streams, and it shows where those funding streams are going for each of those individual pots of money. So your biggest friend during the entire state budget process are comparison documents, which I mentioned before. And this is kind of what it looks like, right? On the left-hand side, you have the executive budget, which just means this is what Governor DeWine is proposing. And then on the right-hand side, you have as passed by the House. So this is the change the House made when it voted, and it kind of goes into detail in terms of what that change is, what statutes are changed, and what the dollar changes as well. This next one shows a little more expansive comparison document. So here you have the executive budget in the middle, passed by the House, and then on the far right, passed by the Senate. So what you see here is all of the different changes from each of the individual chambers. So what the governor proposes. So on here, the first one is no provision. In the middle, it says what the House changed that provision to be. And on the far right, it talks about what the Senate did to that changed provision. And then the last thing you look at when Governor DeWine is finished, the General Assembly is finished, is the Green Book. And this just goes very much similarly to the Red Book into detail in terms of all of the different programs and initiatives and line items that have been passed by the General Assembly, and it'll give you additional information. So to kind of show you what this looks like, I want to do a really quick demonstration on my own browser with several of these pages brought up. So here we have the Ohio checkbook. As you can see, you can scroll over to a bunch of these different columns. They have state budget by function, year-to-year state revenue, and state spending. And you can click on any of these and find out more detail. So for instance, the state budget, you can click on Medicaid and it'll bring up more detail, or you can click on state budget and it'll bring up more detail about the state budget and what exactly is being spent and how much is being spent. So right here, Medicaid, $40 billion, et cetera. It's a really cool tool to figure out where money is coming in and where money is going. Like for instance, why is the state revenue 55 billion, but the state budget 109 billion, and you figure that out by the amount of federal dollars coming in and the amount of tax revenue as well. This next page is Governor DeWine's Blue Book. You can find this on the Office for Budget Management's website, but this is what it actually looks like. So you'll be able to scroll through, you'll see a message from the governor and a table of contents. And in this table of contents, you'll be able to go through and find which departments you want to look at their individual proposals. So let's go to the Department of Developmental Disabilities. Once you get here, you'll get a role and overview of the department, the agency staff, and then you'll be able to see some of their core highlights. For instance, like this provides funding for over 40,000 people receiving home and community-based services. It'll provide a little bit of more information about some of their goals and objectives. And then it goes into how much of their general revenue fund is being increased over the biennium and how much of their all funding is being increased. And I say increase because the Department of Developmental Disabilities is receiving an increase over the biennium. Then you can continue to scroll and see all of the individual line items. In the blue book, you're not going to get full detail of what each of these line items mean, but it is good to think about when you're looking at these and highlight them. So when you get the red book with additional information, you can go back and reference, oh, that's where that money is going. That's why there's been an increase. Oh, that's why there's a decrease, etc. And then as you continue to scroll, you'll get to the agency goals and objectives, which really highlights what the departments are focused on for this individual budget. And I will actually get more in depth into those later on as we go through this actual proposal. And then you can go, as you continue to scroll, you see kind of the overall budget for the department and how much it has changed over time. This page is the Legislative Services Commission's page. As you can see, it looks different than what I had screenshot. But from the Legislative Service Commission main page, you can click on the top bar, which says Budget Central. And then if you want to look at last General Assembly's budget, you would go to the 134th General Assembly and click Main Operating Budget. And this would take you to House Bill 110's budget. You scroll, and on the left-hand side is a place to go to each version of the budget. So as introduced, as passed by House, as passed by Senate, etc. And when you click on each of these, it'll take you to a different page that has a different set of documents that are available for you to review. So the as introduced would have all of the red books, and the final would have all of the green books. And then each, so let's say as pending in Senate committee, would give the ability for you to find the comparison documents and the appropriations spreadsheets as they have changed. So here I'll do a little more in depth of the red book. So as you have noticed, the red book has a list of all of these core priorities that the agency, so for this agency, we're on the Department of Health, is prioritizing. You'll get highlights, and then you'll get further analysis for each of the individual line items. So you can click on any of these from this table of contents, and it'll take you to these highlights. For instance, in House Bill 110, there was a proposal for a long-term care bed buyback program, and it gives additional detail on what exactly that means, how much money is going towards this, and what line item to look for, so you know why that line item has changed and the reasoning behind it. And then it'll give you, if you click on another one, for instance, so this is kind of more of the individual line item priorities, it'll give you each general revenue fund line item and the changes, and give you an explanation of what exactly these line items are doing. So the actual policy initiatives each of these line items are going towards. And then at the very bottom of the red book, you'll have further information about line items with sources, legal basis, so the code you can look it up, and the purpose for each of the line items. And if you scroll down further, you get to the actual appropriation line items for the individual agency budgets. It is the exact same for the green books. The only difference for the green books is this is the final budget, but again, you'll be able to see each individual line item, where services are being provided, how they're being provided, and where the funding is going. And then these are the comparison documents. As I mentioned before, you'll be able to see what the changes are. So for instance, this one in the Department of Medicaid made several changes to some of these codes for nursing facility Medicaid payment rates. The House did not change anything, so it says same as executive. Whereas in this one for the Department of Medicaid, this provision, which says employment connection incentive programs, there's no provision in the executive, no provision in the House, but then the Senate added something, and it gives you detail on what that is and a fiscal effect. So for instance, how much it's going to cost. And then this final walkthrough here is just the entire appropriations spreadsheet generally for the state budget. What is most important is to look at how these funding line items change over time to help you in your advocacy. So it'll show you fiscal year 2020. Well, this is House Bill 110. The appropriation spreadsheets look a little different for this budget coming up, but it'll show you how it has changed over time. So for instance, this particular agency, the Adjutant General, It has 12 million in 2020, 10 million in 2021, 11 million in 2022. So it shows you the change over time, and then it shows you the change in the proposed budget. Okay, so that is kind of an overarching view of how to review the state biennial budget. I realize it is a lot of information, and there's a lot there, but don't worry, we're also here to help walk you all through all of these things, provide you this information as well, in case it gets a little overwhelming and feels like you're not really understanding what it is you're looking at. This is my fourth budget, so now this is very easy to go through for me, but I understand it's a daunting task for some of us who have not done it ever before. My first budget, I felt like I was reading a completely different language when I went through this. So I'm going to go back to my slideshow, and now we're going to walk through the proposals in the governor's blue book. This is the exciting part of this particular presentation. So we'll start out with the Department of Developmental Disabilities. I have a few agencies I want to highlight and a few of their priorities. So as you can see here, this is just a graph of DODD's budget over time and how much of an increase they will be getting. So DODD is requesting an increase of 4% in 2024 and then 5.2% in 2025. And as you can see, the budget for DODD generally has increased over time. And DODD provides our home and community-based waiver services for those in the developmental disability system. Their major initiatives include 5, and this is the most exciting part of this entire presentation, is the Department of DD's major initiatives. We're very excited for everything that this department is proposing in this budget, and we look forward to advocating for many of these provisions. And they include a $579 million investment into provider rates, with the primary purpose of increasing direct care wages, the goal specifically being $16 an hour average wage. So there will be a 16.5% increase in, I'm sorry, I need to pull up my notes, in services like homemaker personal care, on-call shared living, and then a 10% increase for other HCBS services, which include things like adult day, vocational rehabilitation, career planning, non-medical transportation, etc. You can find more of these details. The department released, gave out a news release a few days ago that you can find on their website, which we can link for you as well. Very excited for this language, which is new language requiring boards of DD to have at least one eligible person, one person who is eligible for services to be appointed to the board. Representation matters. This is a huge priority for many disabled advocates, so we're super excited to see this language included. There's also going to be a partnership to increase availability of universal changing tables in public spaces and businesses, and then a continual increased, as we've seen in the past, another increased effort to ensure funding for multi-system youth initiatives. The next budget is the Department of Medicaid, which is also seeing a pretty hefty increase over the biennium. So a 5.2% in 2024 and a 5.4% in 2025. And this graph just shows again how it has increased over time. There's not a lot of information right now from the Department of Medicaid, but a few of the initiatives they have highlighted so far in the Blue Book is again a reiteration of a historic provider rate increase to address the direct care workforce, pursuing a waiver to allow children adopted through private agencies to be eligible for Medicaid coverage, regardless of if their parents are on private insurance or not, and improve access and care through Ohio Rise, which is a home and community-based service initiative for youth. Another exciting development for us is the proposed budget for the Opportunities for Ohioans with Disabilities Agency, Ohio's Vocational Rehabilitation Service, or Vocational Rehabilitation Agency. Again, there's an increase in the state budget of 7.3% in 2024 and 8.1% in 2025. Their major initiatives include, very exciting, to draw down the full federal match for vocational rehabilitation services, to expand services to college students to support individuals to attain a degree, through a 5-year grant, help 1,450 individuals transition out of sub-minimum wage and into competitive integrated employment. Additional $500,000 for the community centers for the deaf. And then a level funding for our friends at the Centers for Independent Living and the Independent Living Council. The next budget I want to highlight is the Department of Mental Health and Addiction Services, which has also seen an increase in 2024 and then a decrease in 2025. However, there is a reason for that, and it's largely due to funding for crisis services and infrastructure, psychiatric hospital staffing, and community mental health services. So there are quite a few initiatives in the Mental Health and Addiction Services Department budget. If you were able to listen in to Governor DeWine's State of the State address, he put a lot of focus on the mental health system here in Ohio, with a huge emphasis on growing the behavioral health workforce. So $20 million going to the county boards to prioritize prevention, early intervention, and suicide prevention. A little over $25 million to improve community-based services for those who are labeled with serious mental illness. $663 million in federal relief dollars to grow the behavioral health workforce, increase the number of mobile response units, reduce inpatient treatment for youth and behavioral health crises, increase care coordination and reduce institutionalization, and increase financial assistance to those most risk at institutionalization. And then one of the largest initiatives that the governor is proposing in this budget is creating a new department called the Department of Children and Youth. It has the acronym of KID for this budget, which is pretty cool. So there isn't much to glean from this particular funding table because it is a new department. So it looks like there's no funding before and there's funding now, and that's only because there's a new department. You'll have to go through and look at all of the other programs that are being included in this department to find what the actual changes are. But the major initiatives for this new department include $11.3 million for early childhood mental health credentialing, $1.3 million a year for the Ohio Family Children First Council, $30 million in adoption grants, expanded eligibility for publicly funded childcare from 142% to 160% of the federal poverty level, and expanded eligibility for Medicaid in Schools program to all students covered under the Medicaid program. So I will go to this slide first. This is my contact information. If anyone has any questions that come up after this briefing, feel free to email or call. But with that, I will take any questions that people may have over my very long presentation that was tedious and had way too much information included.
This is Alexia. Thank you, Jordan. I know I want to encourage people. I know it's 5 p.m. on a Friday, so we're happy that you're here with us. I know that was a lot of information. Please feel free to raise your hand or put in the chat or put in the Q&A if you have a question, or even if you want to just call out something you are excited about that's in the budget, something you're concerned about that's in the budget, anything you're feeling. Okay, we have Donzel Shepherd has their hand raised. So I'm going to unmute you, Donzel. Go ahead and ask your question. So you might need to...
about the budget. Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
This has been a long time coming. I was the former board member of DRO, and I am so glad that they were able to get have been working digitally. I mean, very hard to get this additional funding. I'm keeping my fingers crossed that everything goes well, January January 31st.
Thank you so much, Donzel. We appreciate that. Renee, I see Renee Wood has her hand raised. Renee, you should be able to unmute.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Well, you know what I'm excited about. And the reason why I'm excited about getting people with DGI coming aboard is we never had a say, a real say in the system of our services. So now we will have a say in what's going on. Thank
Absolutely. Thank you, Renee. And Renee won't say this herself, so I will just
you.
acknowledge that Renee has been instrumental in leading the advocacy to get that language introduced. So thank you, Renee. We're super excited too. We had a chat in the Q&A about a link for the Blue Book. We are going to send out every link that Jordan shared in his presentation after the meeting. Lindsay also put in the chat that she is very excited about the Child and Youth Development Department, and she is crossing her fingers for money for direct care workers.
If I could just add one thing based on what was said by Donzel and Renee, which is none of these things, these large increases, the new language around board appointments would have been possible without the incredible advocacy of many of you on this call. And I just cannot reiterate enough how much advocacy works. So thank you all for all of your work in helping get these really historic investments and historic language included into this budget proposal.
Absolutely. I completely agree with that. Well, feel free to throw out any other questions, concerns, excitements. I know we are feeling very excited and hopeful, even though there's still a long road ahead to make sure all the things we care about stay in the budget, and maybe even grow even more. But we're all in that together. But I'm going to turn it back over to Jordan and Alicia if you want to continue on with your presentation. And if folks think of other questions, we will bring those up.
Hi, my name's Alicia Hopkins. I'm an advocacy consultant for Disability Rights Ohio. A visual description of me is I'm a white woman with brown hair, and I have on a gray shirt and brown pants, and my background is blurred. I am really excited about the budget proposals and everything, and but I wanted to talk to everyone about continuing to be involved in advocacy. It's super crucial that we reach out to our legislators because we want to keep the proposed language, still in there. We don't want them to like take it out, going back and forth with committees and everything, but also to keep advocating about the higher wages with home care and the different things, even for even better results and everything. And so it's really crucial to like keep to get involved with advocacy groups that exist, like the work like Olmsted Task Force is doing, the Arc of Ohio, Breaking Silence Advocacy Group, just to get involved and to get involved with the initiatives they're doing, and also to write to legislators and to make phone calls, even try to get meetings with them, because it's really crucial that they know that, like the stories of people with disabilities, because there's so many people that have been affected by the care crisis across the state, and so that they know that the significance of how much spending is needed. Like, we should also encourage our caregivers to get involved and encourage them to submit testimony when it's time, and to talk to legislators and tell their stories as caregivers, and everything. And also we should also follow the news and submit letters to the editor. We've gotten a couple published of different disabled advocates around the state recently, but to continue to keep raising awareness and to talk about this care crisis, talk about it on your social media, tag your representatives, just have people share it, because the more people that the more people we can get involved is crucial. And it's really crucial to be able to tell your stories and get to know your representatives so that they will support the initiatives that are in this budget. And also the Olmsted Task Force, they have an advocacy day coming up in February, on the 22nd of February. That's another way you can get involved and meet legislators. Also through DD Awareness Day is another way to get involved, to share, to like kind of have time with legislators to sort of share your story and to talk about this. But it's really important that we take every opportunity that we can to tell our stories and to have conversation with us in our communities and encourage other people that we know, our friends, family, people that we work with in our jobs, even caregivers, to talk to legislators. So that's what I would like to say about the continuing further advocacy. Thanks.
Thank you, Alicia. Does anyone have any questions on Alicia's topics, or does anyone want to share advocacy efforts they have coming up? Go ahead and use our chat, Q&A, or raise hand if you would like. All right, I think we're all feeling the end of a very long, very busy week in policy. I know this is Jordan and my third webinar of the day about policy, so we completely understand. But just want to thank you all again for being here on this call, and also for all the work you've been doing for years leading up to this. Yeah, so if there are no further questions or comments, just kidding, it's just a thank you. There was a Q&A, but it's just a thank you. Well, if there are no further questions or comments, we can go ahead and end early, but Jordan, did you want to add one other thing as well?
I did. I just wanted to, I'm sure you all realize this already, but please make sure to follow us on our social media. We'll be updating everyone there on what's in and what's not in the budget. These are going to be weekly at the same time. However, they will not be as tedious as this one. From now on, these are going to be more about just kind of updating you on what we're hearing from legislators during the budget process. What are you all hearing, and more of a dialogue versus, I guess, a lecture is what this kind of felt like. So I apologize for you all having to learn this late on a Friday evening. But yeah, I just wanted to add that.
Thanks, Jordan. Yes, it will be much more interactive and discussion based in the future. Thank you for bearing with us through a lot of numbers. There will still be numbers in the future weeks, though, unfortunately. All right, well, just to let you all know, if you requested a recording of the slides or of the presentation, I will get it to you next week. Our captionist is going to make sure that the captions are aligned with the recording, just so it's easy to review with that accessibility. So don't think I've forgotten. All right, well, thank you all again, and I hope you have a wonderful weekend.